A woman's scream sliced through the clatter of dishes and low dinner chatter, freezing every soul inside the small restaurant. Chairs scraped back, forks dropped, and a rush of panic rippled across the room as two men cornered her near the service counter, towering over her, voices sharp, dangerous, ready to break something far more fragile than a peaceful night. At a table near the window, a single father tightened his grip on the small hand of his daughter, but something inside him had already shifted. Before fear could spread further, before anyone could react, he stood, calm, silent, and deadly certain. In 15 seconds, the two attackers would learn the one thing they should have prayed never to discover: the man they had just threatened in front of his child, had once been Navy. If you believe the world still needs kindness, bravery, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Your support helps these real-life, inspired stories reach more hearts. The night had begun gently, as if life wanted to offer a quiet pause to a man who rarely received one. Daniel Hayes, a widowed father of a 7-year-old girl named Mia, had taken her out for a simple dinner after a long week of work and school. He had promised her a treat, her favorite creamy pasta and chocolate milkshake. To Mia, this restaurant felt magical. Warm lights, soft music, and families gathered around tables gave her a sense of belonging she desperately clung to. For Daniel, it was a brief sanctuary he had learned to create for her, even while he carried the weight of memories that kept him up at night. His Navy years had trained him in strength and discipline, but his post-service life had forced him into an entirely different battle, raising a daughter alone while fighting shadows no one else could see. He thought the night would be peaceful. He watched Mia laugh as she twirled noodles around her fork, her eyes bright, her world simple. She didn't know the sacrifices he made to give her this normalcy, how he worked double shifts as a security consultant, how he avoided talking about her mother's passing because the very memory could break him, how he tried to teach her kindness even when the world had not been kind to him. For Daniel, being a father meant never letting his pain become hers. But life didn't always honor the quiet moments. It often tested the people trying hardest to hold things together. It started with raised voices near the counter. A woman, maybe in her late 20s, wearing a pale blue coat, was trying to pay her bill. Something had upset the two men behind her. Maybe it was impatience. Maybe arrogance. Maybe something darker that had been waiting for an excuse to show itself. What Daniel heard first was a tone, sharp, aggressive, and he immediately straightened in his seat. His instincts, trained to detect shifts in human behavior, fired like alarms in his mind. The men stepped closer to her, one blocking her path, the other leaning too near, their words dripping threats only meant to grow worse. For a moment, every customer pretended not to see it. People glanced but quickly looked away, torn between fear and helplessness. That's when one of the attackers grabbed the woman's wrist. Her cry shattered the illusion of safety. Mia gasped. Daniel didn't remember standing, his body moved before thought. One heartbeat he was at the table, the next he was between the woman and the men, his posture quiet but unshakable. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The attackers smirked at first, amused that someone would dare intervene. They didn't know who he was. They didn't know what he had survived. They didn't know that for Daniel, protecting others wasn't a choice, it was reflex. 15 seconds later, they found themselves on the ground, disarmed by movements too swift for their eyes to follow, pinned by the very calm strength they had underestimated. It wasn't rage. It wasn't revenge. It was controlled, precise, the kind of discipline only a Navy man could wield. The restaurant watched in stunned silence as the danger evaporated like a storm that hadn't realized who it was roaring at. The woman trembled but safe, tears gathering in her eyes as she realized what had just happened. Daniel didn't stay long in the spotlight. He made sure she was unharmed, asked the manager to call the police, and then returned to his daughter, who looked up at him with a mix of awe and fear. He smiled gently, softening his expression, reminding her that he was still just her dad, even if the world had forced him to be more than that tonight. As the chaos settled, the woman approached their table. Her hand still shook as she thanked him, her voice breaking with gratitude. But Daniel simply nodded, as if what he had done was nothing heroic, just the right thing. The truth was, he didn't feel like a hero. He felt tired. Life had demanded strength from him so many times that moments like these felt less like bravery and more like fate refusing to let him rest. The manager insisted on giving them free meals for the night, but Daniel declined. He didn't want rewards for protecting someone. He didn't want attention. He wanted his daughter to feel safe again. They finished their dinner quietly, the room still buzzing with whispers about the single father who had moved like a storm and protected a stranger without hesitation. Later, as they walked to the car, Mia slipped her small hand into his and asked if he was scared. Daniel answered honestly, a little. Not of the men, but of the idea that someday he might not be strong enough to keep her safe. She hugged his arm tightly, and in that simple gesture, he found the strength he thought he had lost. His daughter was his anchor, the one reason he kept standing, kept fighting, kept believing he could rebuild a life from the ruins of his past. In the following days, the story spread. Someone in the restaurant had recorded the incident. Daniel hadn't known until coworkers showed him the video. It went viral. People praised him, called him a hero, thanked him for stepping in when others froze. Messages poured in from strangers. Some from fellow veterans who recognized the controlled movements, others from single parents who understood his quiet resilience. Daniel felt overwhelmed. He never wanted fame. He just wanted to live quietly with the little girl who believed he could fix anything. But something unexpected came from the incident. The woman he saved, named Emily, reached out again. Not out of obligation or pity, but with genuine gratitude and a warm sincerity that Daniel hadn't felt from anyone in a long time. She thanked him again, in a calmer, more personal moment. Then she confessed that she had felt invisible for most of her life, carrying her own struggles quietly, until someone she had never met stepped in and proved that kindness and courage still existed. They spoke for hours. They began sharing stories, fears, and memories they hadn't told anyone else in years. It wasn't romance, not yet. It was healing. It was connection. It was two people learning that broken doesn't mean unworthy. Slowly, Daniel found himself looking forward to her messages, her presence, her reminders that he didn't have to carry everything alone. And Emily grew closer to Mia too, offering warmth and joy that the little girl accepted without hesitation. They weren't a family, not officially, but something meaningful began to grow in the quiet spaces between them. And somewhere along the way, Daniel realized that stepping in to protect a stranger hadn't just changed her life, it had changed his too. It reminded him that even wounded hearts can still protect, still love, still build something strong and beautiful. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Your engagement keeps these powerful stories alive and helps them reach others who need them. Before you go, please leave a special comment. Kindness lives on.